Good afternoon, good morning for everybody that is joining us in another webinar with Poultry School. It's a big honor to presenting this series of webinar that we're going to be presenting in collaboration with the Experimental Poultry Centre from Belgium, from Antwerp. And today we have Nathalie Sleeckx. Sorry if I don't pronounce it the right way. For me, it's kind of difficult. So Nathalie is a researcher in the experimental center. So she will be talking about cage-free transition. Nathalie, thank you very much for providing this information and the willingness to provide education to the industry. And we're very excited of doing this collaboration with your center and your colleagues. So this will be recorded and will be in our platforms in maybe 1 week and a half. And then after the presentation, we're going to have a little time for questions. So Nathalie, thank you very much and welcome.
Hello. So also welcome from my part and many thanks for the opportunity to talk today. So today I will talk on the transition on yeah now my yeah on the transition to cage-free in laying hens. I will briefly present our institute, who we are, because it's important to understand a lot of the things that I present, as we're an applied research institute. I will briefly go over why this transition, why is this needed, and why do we see this evolution. I will also explain a bit the situation in Europe because this has an impact on what is going on in Belgium, so the country where we live in. And I will mainly focus on some practical consequences. So the practical implementation when you make this transition from a cage system to a cage-free housing system. And then I will briefly touch some future challenges that are also upcoming. If I look at the Experimental Poultry Centre, so who are we? I have some trouble going to the next slide now. Yeah. So who are we? We're an experimental, an applied research institute, and our main focus is to orient on this future-proof poultry farming, and we do that through this applied research and knowledge dissemination. And we are really yeah, wanting to be a reference center for applied research institute, as we really have both layer and broiler houses at our institute. It's also important to let you know that we're independent institute. That means that we're really objective, so we're not linked to any company or an R&D department. So that means we're really a neutral role, and we are a bit of a central role in this poultry sector as an applied research and the link between more fundamental research and the poultry farmer itself. I try to put, we will try to organize what is our focus? What is the focus of the research that we're doing? And it's not really one focus, as you can see on the slides. It's a lot of things that we want to investigate, because all of these things are important for the farmers. They are confronted with this variety of things, from food safety over energy emissions, the housing requirements, but also animal welfare, animal health, and then a digitalization. And of course, it still needs to be profitable. So that's a large area, large things that are important, and we try to combine this when we do an evaluation of a certain new legislation or new technologies that are made available. As I briefly said, why is it important that I show this? Because we have our own layer house for 31,000 laying hens and 3 broiler houses for 44,000 broilers. So that's at maximum capacity, and of course this depends a bit on the trials we're doing. But for the layer house, we have 3 compartments on enriched cages. in a total of about 9,000 laying hens. So that means when I say semi-commercial, you see they're larger groups, they're not small-scale research that we do. And then we have two types of aviary systems. So an aviary is actually in Belgium the most common non-cage system that you can find in the field. And it depends a bit. We have two different systems that represent a bit of the systems that we see in the field. So we have four of this type and then four of another type, and depends a bit the number of birds, but in total we have 18,000 birds in a cage system, in a cage-free system. Now, why this transition? In the European Union in 2012, there was this ban of the battery cages. So that meant that there was a transition to alternative systems. Furnished or enriched cages were still allowed at that time. So a lot of the farmers made a transition to either an aviary system or a barn or floor system. It depended a bit on the house that they already had, of course, and enriched cages. Now we see this evolution towards a total cage-free system. So that means that even the enriched cages are no longer allowed. Now, what is actually the aim of this cage-free system? Why is this evolution busy? Actually, to increase the freedom of movement, to stimulate the natural behavior, to actually let the hen behave as she would do in an outdoor area where you would not influence her. That means that there is a need for different areas because there is a variety of behaviors then that the hen should be able to do so, in which a lot of companies that are busy with housing systems try to include this in the development of the systems. So, as I just said, the ban of the battery cage in 2012, now this end of cage age act. Um, it's important to know that although it is a European evolution, the end dates of the enriched cage differ in the member states. So I took out Belgium as an example. Now, for the moment, we still have 36% of the laying hens on enriched cages, but the there is not allowed anymore to build stables with new stables with enriched cages. So that's no more longer allowed. But there is a different regional timing for a total ban. So in Flanders, which is the northern part of Belgium, it's still 11 years that farmers can produce in the system, while in Wallonia, in 3 years, they all need to go to a cage-free system. But I think if you know you're all busy in the sector, that it has some challenges. You know there are differences in hen management, but for a country it also has a consequence on the number of hens because of course as you have seen the number of hens in an house in enriched cages is different than in a non-cage system. And I added this slide just to show that, to put emphasis on that. So this is Belgian legislation, the difference between an enriched cage requirements, so code 3X, and a barn or aviary system code 2. But I will not go over every part, but I think it is clear that the requirements in terms of dimensions, needs, perch lengths, surface per hen, nest space per hen are different, and that the requirements in this code 2 or even code 1, where you have this free range, are very different. I added some pictures of possibilities for if you go to this cage-free transition. So the left picture is a picture of our barn, of one of the systems that we have, where you see this indoor aviary system. On the right is actually a bit of a mixed system. You have a barn slash aviary system where you see that's also some floor area there. Then there's also a lot of aviary with covered veranda throughout Europe. So also there regional differences. And so left photo is where you can see the indoor, and then here you see on the right the pop holes, and then when they open the pop holes, the hens can be here in this covered veranda in this indoor area, and then here pop holes again, they come out and they go to the free range. This is very different. In Flanders, we do not have a lot of space. In countries where there is a lot of open space, we see more free range. It has some consequences, of course, because in terms of when there is avian influenza, as I think it is a global threat at the moment. Uh, it is Birds need to stay inside, and then this covered veranda can be a very good solution as an intermediate zone where the hens still can use in addition to the indoor aviary area. And these zones, so these are not enriched, normally they go outside, but you can also put some enrichment there as roughage, packing stones, but also other enrichment materials to keep the hens busy. This is important, especially if they were used to go outside, and now due to confinement, it's not possible anymore. Then in Europe, you also have well, it's not the majority, but it's still also important. Part is on organic. These are additional requirements, but also here very different needs depending on the region, depending on the country. But in general, it is less hens per square meter, and there are also requirements on the outdoor area. So this is, for example, a field situation where we followed a farmer and monitored the outdoor area in summertime. The use of the outdoor area, for example, you can see on the right picture. It's a more cloudy day. They like to go outside in the open zone, while on a very sunny day, so very high light intensity, they prefer to stay covered under the trees there. And when they want to go to the other side, they really run and make a very fast transition to avoid this open space. Actually, that's something that is typical. So the arrangement of this free range is very important to stimulate the use of it. Here you see the same uh, free range in winter, rainy day. There's no more. Yeah, the trees are without leaves. They stay together. They do not use. It's very good. So you see there are many challenges in these different systems. And then I added one more. It's the mobile house. This is upcoming in Europe. You see it in different levels. So this is more of a professional system where you can house more than up to 1,000 birds. This on the right is then the opposite. Actually, this is built by a small farmer itself for about 160 birds. This you mainly see, for example, for farmers that already have crops that offer like vegetable packages to local consumption, and then they want to add eggs. It's more of a circular vision where they then want to give the excess of the vegetables to the hens. So it's quite different, but we see an increase in this alternative system. Now, as I just said, these non-cage systems have some challenges. Challenges for the laying hen. So in terms of feather packing, cannibalism, we see higher mortality. And then also a lot of keel bone fractures, especially in the aviary system, because chicken is not the best flying bird in the hen house. The space is also limited, and there's a lot of things where she can collide with when she tries to fly down or fly up, and we see a large number of keel bone fractures in these situations. Other type of diseases, because there's more contact with litter, some leg problems, depends a bit also on the system, but also some challenges for the farmer. There's more labor due to the difference in management. For example, you have more Florence system eggs, which need to be collected. There's a difference in production numbers of the birds, and then there's one thing that is might be important for both is the dust. There is more dust, for example, in an aviary system compared to an enriched cage. So this is a bit more general view, but in the rest of the presentation, I will try to focus on how does this affect the practical work in the hen house. This shift towards cage-free systems. And I want to start here with a day in the life of a laying hen, because all of the things a laying hen does during the day might be important when she can walk around in a system. Either it is with a covered veranda and a free range, either it is totally in indoor system. So the hen will get up in the morning. She might be preening a bit. Then she's hungry, goes to feed herself, which she needs to find. She needs to search for the feeding lines because it's not as in an enriched cage where it is more easily available. Same with the water. She needs to search where she can drink. And then there's a need to lay the egg. And mostly on a lot of the drinking lines are placed strategically close to the nests so that then she will easily find the nest. Afterwards, she will start eating again. And then in the afternoon, there is some other behaviors that we see more, like dust baiting is seen a lot. She will go foraging, scratching, pecking. So if you provide an enrichment material that the hens can use, this is really good at those points. So the hens, number of hens will then also feed and drink, of course, during the time, and at night they will sleep. And in an aviary system, you see these are night visions of our hen house, where you can see that all the hens perch or are sitting on the system. Just this is important to keep in mind while we go through the different phases. So I build up the presentation in the different phases of the production cycle of a laying hen. So that starts from rearing until the later aged hens. So we go from rearing to the transfer and placement in the hen house, the start of the lay, the peak period, and then the period until 70 weeks approximately, and then until a larger age. Of course, these are average ages. There are differences between hybrids, between brown and white hens. We see seasonal differences. We see differences in housing systems. So these are averages, but I think the phases will help guiding you with the most important points of action. So we'll start with rearing because, of course, well, the situation in Europe mainly is that the rearing is done at another farmer. So he will receive the 1 day old laying hen chicks and will raise them actually to fully trained 17-week-old pullets that then will be transferred to the hen house. There are a lot of things that are very important, and it is a crucial period also because there are a lot of stress moments for these pullets in 17 weeks. So they go through different molting phases. They will get quite a lot of vaccinations. Depends a bit on the region where you live in, which vaccinations are made, but it is quite of a strict schedule. This vaccination will trigger the immune system, which can have an impact on the general health of the bird, especially on feed intake, water intake, movement. But you will also want them to be trained so that they can find water and feed in a more complicated situation compared to an enriched cage. So it is important that these pullets are raised in the same system as they will be placed in the productive life. So that means if they are meant to be raised in furnished enriched cages, they need to be reared in a cage system. And on the left, you see different possibilities, different types. On, for example, these were flocks that went in our enriched systems that we visited at the rearer, and you see different possibilities. On the right, you see hens that will come in our aviary system. So that's the same for a farmer also. And you will see two different types of systems. So the top view is a row system. This has doors that can be closed. So then it's more like a cage. For example, in the beginning, the farmer can then choose which levels he opens to stimulate behavior, but they can also close it again for certain vaccinations where you need individual vaccination, like eye drop, wing web, or where they need an injection. This is another system, and here actually you see that the levels can be lifted when the chicks grow. So the more they grow, the larger they are, and the more they can jump. And they always need to jump, need to move towards the drinking lines and the feeders so that they actually learn how to use a more complicated system. Yeah, this is from a housing company, an example of how the birds then can move different types. This is more detail of this row system. These are also our hens when they were reared in a system like this. You see, they also have to move. There's no feed or water on the floor. It's in the system, so they need to move. This is the other system where the platforms can be lifted, and you see these are hens. They are typically can move better than the brown ones, where you see that they use the system also in the higher areas, which will help you as a farmer when they arrive in your hen house to use the system. It is also important that you get a lot of information from the rearer. So you need information on the light schedule the rearer use. When does the lights go on and off? Um, the dawn and the dusk period. How long is it? What are these pullets actually used before they come to your house? The same with the feed. What is the feed schedule, intake, feed formulation? Can you, for example, share it with your feed company and adapt the feed, the first feed they receive, so that it's a more smooth transition? The hen weights. You want to know if the pullets have a good weight. This is important to monitor and maybe stimulate feed intake if necessary. For example, in a very hot period where the feed intake might not be as you wish to become to so that the pullets become robust hens before they start laying. Does the rearer has parasites? You also want to know, are there, for example, red mites? It's a common problem. In Belgium, rearing is mostly negative, but in laying hens, it is a problem. And if possible, although we are aware now with avian influenza, it's more challenging, to visit your pullets while they are in the rearing farm to see for yourself how they're doing, how they react on persons. How is the general health, things like that. For example, take your farm vet with you, and also look if there are feathers on the litter, on the manure belt, to see if they didn't, or there might be a problem with deficiency or pecking problems, because of course while they are molt, early signs of injurious pecking can be masked. So it's important that you see them for yourself. You also have a job to do, so you need to prepare your layer house. This is on the left picture, also a picture of our hen house. We always choose for a wet cleaning, so with, if possible, warm water with the foam, so that yeah, most of the dirt, yeah, you first remove the dirt, then you clean with water, so that most of the dirt is removed. It's better than a dry cleaning. It takes more time, it is more costly, but it really has advantages for diseases, for red mites, for worms, for a lot of things actually. Treatment of the water lines, laying flocks take a long time. So that means that the development of a biofilm can be a problem. Um, so that's very important also to clean it thoroughly. And also check the drink nipples, because of course if the biofilm is removed, it can block these nipples. So if you did not check them when your hens arrive, they might have difficulties drinking supply. You might also consider a red mite treatment if in your previous flock you had problems with that. So on the right picture, you see that the entire walls and system was treated with a silica powder. This was applied in the wet application so that it really covers the systems when the mites that are still in the system would reactivate when the hens arrive, that a lot of them would be mechanically killed. And then also this depends, of course, of your season that you arrive, you expect the birds, the temperature. Avoid very hot periods. Try to cool down. For example, we have a cooling situation, cooling installation in the house where we can have a sort of a water that fogging that we can with the ventilation so that it cools down in winter. If the house is very cold, maybe you should consider of preheating it a bit so that the material and the floor is not too cold. These are pictures of our at our hen house when the hens arrived. So as a research institute, we typically have different hybrids. We both have the white hens and the brown hens, although the market in Belgium is mainly brown eggs. Um, Again, here avoid very extreme temperatures. The left picture you see nice blue sky, was a hot day. Avoid to leave the hens too long in the containers in the open sun. The middle picture you see it's in the winter. Avoid that there's too many that they have a wind or that you can put them as easy fast as possible in the house so that they are covered. Um, you also want to have a good preparation of your house. You see that that in the left picture there is a litter on the floor. You have extra steps so that they can more easily go and explore the system, move and within the system. We already provide roughage from the first day. Not all farmers do that. There are also farmers that keep that as an extra when they, for example, see the first signs of pecking. Our policies that we put it from the beginning. Again, here you see these extra steps that they can use. The hens, when they arrive in your hen house, are hungry. So they, depending on the in Belgium is not that big. So maximum sober for a night transport is maximum an hour or three. Depends a bit on the timing, but I can imagine in the other countries the transport time might be a lot longer. So there needs to be water supply at the transportation. But normally in Belgium, hens do not get fed or water in the on the on the lorry. Um, but they are hungry when they arrive, so they haven't been fed since the night before. They were catched during the night. You have to make sure your feeding systems are filled. And although you ideally adapt a bit to the feeding schedule of your rearing house, the first day you just make sure that these feeding lines are continuously filled so that the hens can eat throughout the day. Yeah, I told that from the roughage. We give it from the beginning. Again, the bit the same with the light schedule. So I previously mentioned that you should know the light schedule of your rearing organization so that you know um, how to adapt it to your situation, and then from there build up the daylight until what works for you when you want to start with the collection of the eggs. But the first day, again, depends also a bit on when the hens arrive. You have to give them higher intensity and possibly also a longer daytime so that they have light enough and time enough to explore the system. They've never been in this system. They've been reared in a totally different. They do not know where the different areas are. They do not know. that there's water here and here, feeding lines here and on top. So they have to learn. So you have to give them time to discover this. Afterwards, the days after, then you can, as you see here on the, it's an example of a light schedule where you can then build up the hours of light, and also with certain dawn and dusk periods for the different lights. I will come back to that in a couple of slides, but you see we have lights here, here, and then also in the system and under the system. So all lights go through a specific um, schedule. It is important to reduce any stress from the beginning. As I just said, the catching, the transportation, the new system, that's already quite some stress for these animals. So you want to make sure that they're maximally supported on all the other parts. So feeding, lights, water, packing blocks if necessary. These steps I already mentioned. Make sure there are no red mites that already the first night will annoy them, and that they might have different areas, different zones where they can do different behaviors. So that for the transfer and placement of the pullets. I picked out the most important ones. I can imagine there are a lot of guides and lists where you can find all of the different steps, but these are the things that we and the animal caretakers here at our house specifically look at these first days. Um, that brings us to the next phase, so the start of the laying period. So I just said about the light schedule. You build up your light, but ideally you do this according to the development of the hens. That means that there are differences between flocks, differences between seasons. A flock in spring will be faster than a flock that is placed in winter. White hens will be sooner than brown ones. And if you then compare to the enriched cages, you see that the hens in the enriched cages typically have the first eggs sooner, also because they're even if the same breed, they're higher in weight, they're more developed. Typically, when they arrive at the farm, we see it because we have different systems here. We can compare them, and the enriched cages are always a bit earlier. But again, it is quite stressful period for the bird, because she needs to gain weight, she needs to be fully developed, all the organs go through a final development phase. So there is a need for feed intake. And for example, if you have a placement in a very hot period, and the hens do not eat enough, do not develop enough, you might have problems from the start in terms of health, packing problems, and you really want to avoid that. Because next to that, they also go through some physiological stress, at these hormonal changes when the reproductive tract is under development. These first eggs that come, where do they need to put them? Where they need to explore where to put them, avoid to have floor and system eggs. And there's also some pressure on the liver with the yolk development. It is also a typical period where weak birds that maybe you didn't notice in the first week will become visible. And when hens are already a bit stressed, they might start pecking to each other, and these weaker birds are actually easy victims. So you need to stay alert for these birds. And on top of that, depending on the hybrid, depending on the strain, you see that some brown birds might have a final molt stage in this period. And it is very difficult then to detect the first signs of pecking at this age. So it's a very crucial period where you need to be very alert. And if necessary, you might need to consider supplementation through feed or drinking water. Again, a picture of the litter. I already showed it in the rearing. Stay alert also for this presence of feathers and dawn feathers on the litter, on the manure belt. If they, for example, quickly disappear, you might need to check if there's not pecking. You might need to check with your feed company if there's no deficiencies, or you need to supplement with some amino acids, for example. Now, as I just said, crucial periods. I have some life situations that I would like to go through with you. For example, we talked about the daily light, but how would you set it up? Um, if you want your eggs collection started at 8, you want to reduce your floor and system eggs, and you want to prevent the hens from pecking, so really work proactively, and you also want them to sleep on the perches and the system at night. You can do a lot only with your lighting schedule, so that's already a very good starting point to avoid problems for all of the things we just discussed. So again, a picture of our hen house. You see that we have the main lights at the ceiling. We have system lights on the first level and under the system. And then we have like smaller lights also at the ceiling, but above the system. So we added some. This is an example. You can make small changes, as I just said, to adapt to your flock, your hybrid, your situation. But let's say for us, we want the lights to go on at 3 and go out at 6. So we go towards 15 periods hours of light. So we have legislation that uh, makes it that you need at least 8 hours of nights, continuous night period, dark period. Um, and that means 16 hours of light. And we mainly go towards 15 hours of light, that if there is an event, a disease that goes through mid flock somewhere, you still have 1 hour to stimulate them again. But let's see, you want the lights to go on and out. We have a dawn and dusk period. Um, Then we have the lights in the system. They go out on together with these main lights at 3, together with the lights under it at 3, with build up in intensity until the maximum intensity you want. These lights, we do not keep them during the entire day. We only put them half an hour before we want the lights, the general lights, to go on. And we use them as a small light for early layers. In some flocks, yeah, in the brown flocks that we have a lot of experience with, sometimes you already have some system eggs from early laying birds, and this small light then would give them the opportunity to find the nests if necessary. So that's in the morning. This starts, small light goes out when the other lights have their build up towards a maximum intensity. Then at night, you see again that these, let me start here, you see that these will briefly go on. Yeah, I forgot to mention. So here you see that they go out at in the before noon. Again, this is something, again, you adapt to your flock. In the beginning, you just keep them on, but at a certain time, when there is less floor and system eggs, you can put them out during the day, for example, at just after the afternoon, just early afternoon, and then if needed, if the hens need it, you can be a bit earlier. This to give some resting area, a darker area where they can use as a resting area. Why you don't leave it out all day, to avoid that the hens go laying their eggs under the system. So you will definitely put it on during the the laying period. So you want them to go to sleep. You put these on for a short period. Then they also go out. This goes out um, goes out again. Then also the main lights start decreasing in intensity, a 30-minute dusk period. That means that you do not longer have lights here. These lights are out. you have lights in the system, and also you see here the timing. Also, this light goes on again, then this one goes out smoothly, and then you only have this. And then this means that if you look at the movement, hands go here and then go on the system. So this is a typical also methods to guide the hands towards the system. This is a basic. You have to adapt it to your flock. So every flock, it's possible that you need to put 5 minutes here extra or 10 minutes more there. This is adaptable to the period, but that's the strategy behind the uh, a lighting schedule. Now on this floor and system eggs, you want to avoid it. In a cage system, it is clear the eggs go to the egg belt, easy, less possibility to lay the eggs somewhere else. But in an aviary system, there's a lot of possibilities. You want the hens to put their eggs in the nest and avoid floor and system eggs. But these hens start laying. Not all hens find the way to the nests, and some might think, oh, this litter here in the corner, nice, I will put my eggs there, or hens that just lay where they sit. So as I said, this light schedule will help you. We just discussed that. But also, it is important then in these first weeks that hens are placed on the system by hand. So in this week of the placement, you really need, and we also so do it, and the farmers we collaborate with, we know also do this. The first week they go at night during this phasing out this dusk period. They go and they put the hens that they didn't went on the system manually on the system. It's also important that once the flock is ongoing, the litter will build up here in this area, that you remove it so that it's not too thick layer of litter, because also this will stimulate the hens to putting their eggs there. Once you find the first eggs, it is important that during a certain period, depends a bit, some weeks, some depends on the flock, you need to collect all the eggs that are laid in the litter and on the system. Because of course, if there's, for example, here a corner that one hen lays an egg, a second one, third one, then the hens learn to lay eggs there instead of in the nests. Yeah, I just set up this morning light for early layers, and opening the nests together with that might also help. And then what often is also used depends a bit on the season. So in this system, you see there's drinkers here and here. So at the start they can drink everywhere, but then after they get used to the system, uh, you do not provide any water anymore on these lines, only here. So for example, for us, in number of drinkers, according to legislation, there's enough drinkers for the number of hens here at the nest. So it's not that you provide not enough water. So actually we have double lines in points of legislation. So that means when they want to drink, they need to go here, and then they are very close to the nests. I say depends on the season, because of course in a very hot period this might not be what you want with these young birds. So something you need to see at the moment, but it works. So that were some practical consequences from this first phase. So hens start laying, most hens are laying, and then we enter the peak period around 30 days. So maximal production from your hens, maximum laying percentage. And then this is actually, these are averages, as I said, a period where you get more into a routine. Still, some points you really need to pay attention for, like be alert for these early pecking signals. We developed a feather cover checklist, a monitor behavior checklist that can be used by the farmer also, that are used by our animal caretakers weekly, and that really can detect early signs. So this was developed in a European project. You can find the website here. Um, It's not yet there because it's under development, but once the project is done, you can find these checklists here, or you can already mail me. My mail address is at the end of the presentation. You also have to be careful for the feed. So feed intake needs to be monitored. Um, Ideally, depends a bit on the guidance. They advise you to have an empty feeder, so that means that one time per day the feeding lines need to be empty, so that all the elements, all the small parts are all also consumed, and that it's not a selective eating by the hens that you give. Mainly it is done in the period end of lay before noon, depends a bit on when you start your daytime. Clean water, that's obvious, but check it. It's a long period. It's not always sure that you do not have any biofilm. Also depends on the supplementations you give by the drinking lines. You should consider liver support where needed. Check the combs. If necropsy is done, check the liver health. Avoid fatty livers. Adapt your feed when needed. Give some liver support supplementation through the feed, through the water. Also, the gut health is important. If, for example, your farm vet does a checkup, let them also check the good health so that there's no problem with worms or with um, infections in these in your gut. Make sure you control the parasites. So worms, I just said, red mites are also important. And then the egg quality is also important, especially by the end of this period. You might consider together with your feed company and your farm vet to start supplementing, for example, with calcium or adapt at least the type or percentage of calcium. On these packing signals, delay. It's coming. On these packing signals, I want to also go a bit more in depth. What can you do, for example, to make sure that you can detect these early signs? I just said with the monitoring, but also what can you do in your hen house when you see packing? It doesn't go to the next slide now. Yeah, it's coming. One more slide further. So the next slide, which is coming, you will see different phases of packing in hens. And it is important that you also detect these early signs because, of course, large, bold areas everybody can see, can detect. But it is the smaller, more subtle changes that you also need to be able to detect. Yeah. So in the left picture, you see typically the base, the tail base, the typical area. You see here that most of the brown cover feathers have been removed. They have been pecked. Here you see good hens, but you see here some white zones. You might check, take some hens and check if you see other damages. This, of course, is very obvious, but this is not you want to wait for. So it's very important that you do these early checks. And what can you do then? We already discussed the enrichment, basic enrichment that you might want to consider to start with from the placement of the hens. You see here, this has been a large pecking stone. They really use it a lot, especially the birds that are non-beak trimmed. That's another trend we see in Europe, that some labels, also some legislation, depending on the member states, banned the lasering of the tip of the beak. This with these pecking blocks, you can really also have a good effect there. And if you see early signs of injurious pecking, you might consider to add some distraction In the omelette project, we compared some extra enrichments and also the effect on the behavior. So we are busy with analyzing these data, but again, through the omelette website, through our channels, you can find updates on that. Some flocks also react positively on sound if you put a radio in your hen house so that they're used to different sounds and unexpected sounds especially. Closing of the nests in the afternoon, that's mainly to remove the victims, the pecked hens, from these nests. You see here the difference. This is a hen in a bad shape, pale combed, not a nice feather cover, weight is less, so this is not a good hen and an ideal victim to be pecked. So you might consider taking it out. And then, as I just also mentioned, with the light, you can do quite a lot and even consider red lights or, yeah, putting, for example, a tape on the lights. Then, very short, I know depends a bit on where you're from. In Europe, the red mite, Dermanisis gallinae, is a large problem, main issue in a lot of houses. I know in the US there are mainly the northern fall mite, if I'm not mistaken, but it is an important parasite. Almost all of the laying hen houses in Europe are infested with it. It can have a very short cycle, and in a hen house they're small, but you can see clusters in when you have an infestation on the manure belt here, egg belt here, different areas on the system. You see all these clusters of red mites. They live in the system, and at night they come and suck blood from the hens, and they can have quite a lot of negative effects on the hen health, because yeah, the blood needs to be renewed, needs energy, increase feed intake, things like that, but also restlessness, stress, which can then cause pecking problems. And also because the energy is needed for the blood, less production, and can be a transmission of effect of diseases. Monitoring is key here. These are different methods. I will not go into detail in that. We finished mite control project, European project last year, and we have a lot of guidelines, fact sheets, help on the different monitoring systems. So you can take a look at our website, can take a look at the mite control site. Important is, if you want to monitor, choose a method that works for you, that you can continue to towards the end of the flock. So that's the main part, that you do it, that you do not stop somewhere mid flock. Then we're reaching towards the end. So also the end of the phases of the production life of a hen. In these older hens, especially brown ones, you can see that sometimes the movement of the hens might be problem. These older, more heavier birds have difficulties in jumping or flying on the and moving in the system. So traditionally, by the end of the flock, we add extra steps. Mainly it's the same steps as in the beginning, but they use it a lot. They use it to go to the different levels. Also follow up the mortality closely. What are the causes of the mortality? And then, yeah, these are a bit the same points of attention, but also here you might be very alert, because these older hens are less resilient, and small changes that might, yeah, some months ago might not be a problem, can cause a problem and spread rapidly in these older hens. Um, that was a bit in a nutshell, and some highlights of some practical consequences and how you could deal with it in an aviary system. Um, what are the trends now that we are busy in Belgium, in Europe? Prolonging the laying cycle, so keeping the hens longer, but of course with a good production, good welfare, good health. That's something that we're investigating in the omelette projects. In some countries, there's all, yeah, in Europe and in some countries, it's already prohibited, the culling of the day-old males. which has consequences for the sector. So innovations on innovosexing, some labels fatten the males. This also has consequences, especially in terms of efficiency, for example. Is it possible for all the males? These are all basic questions that need to be answered. And then you have the ammonia and dust emission that is not only higher in aviary systems, for example, but especially in certain areas like Flanders, the Netherlands. The legislation is very strict since last year, and it has consequences on farmers, and especially also for farmers that need to make the transition. This can have consequences on their permits. And then odor is also more and more important. In the Omelette project, I already mentioned parts of it. We want to search for solutions like light, enrichment, different effect of hybrids to stimulate this longer cycle. And we also want to see if a proactive hen management, a good follow-up with a good data platform, not only of production, but also of health and welfare parameters, can help to guide the farmer together with the farm vet and the advisors toward a good flock. We finished one flock already. My colleague is busy with the analysis of the results, and you will hear more from it in the coming months. Then a last slide. It was already mentioned at the beginning, there will be more webinars from our institute. So they will be announced also on the LinkedIn of Poultry School, but here a list. So next week, my colleague Tom will talk on the gas and especially the ammonia emissions. So that brings me to the end. So I would be happy to answer any questions, and also afterwards you can always email me uh, if you want.
Okay, Natalie, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very detailed and a lot of information. I'm very excited about all the content that you shared with us. We don't have any questions right now from the live audience, so here is Natalie email. So any other questions that you may have, the people that will be watching this video later, here is Natalie email, so you can reach her directly. So Natalie, thank you very much. We appreciate your information and we're very excited about the oncoming webinars. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So thank you, Natalie. And thank you
Okay.
to
Thank
everybody
you.
that joined us for this live presentation. Thank you and bye-bye.
Bye.